Namo Bổn Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. The recitation of Sir Mangama mantra was late today because my disciples thought when supportive recitation was over and they all went to the main praying hall. However, the funeral was not finished. So I still chant here until the funeral ceremony for Mr. Nguyen Tan Din, who was Buddha's name of Minh Hoi, is complete. Tomorrow his body leaves the village for cremation at 11 a.m. and can't be later than 1 p.m. The relic collection ceremony depends on the funeral home. I think the earliest will still take a week or two. Just like Miss DQ, the relic collection ceremony was not possible for a couple of weeks. Now, Diu Hong, please lend me a temperature record during the supportive recitation, or if anyone who can remember the numbers, please give them to me. It will be easier for me to explain. There are many people calling me to ask questions about Minh Hoi's case. They wanted to know why I had to use the fragrance at that time, but they didn't see me do it in the past. In addition, I also used the Ukma mantra before I started the supportive recitation. When I came in the room, I realized there was a foul smell. I asked Diu Hong if the nurse had cleaned Minh Hoi up or not. She told me that the nurse just cleaned Minh Hoi 10 minutes ago. After we finished the Sir Manga mantra in the morning, Wei Tuyen informed me that his heart rate was 130. As you know, you can't really breathe at a heart rate of 110. His oxygen saturation level was only 70 and had dropped to 50. The previous day, it was 99%. I immediately told everyone to take breakfast quickly because we needed to get ready to perform the supportive recitation. At 9:15 a.m., my disciples and I finished our breakfast and entered the room. Diu Hong told me that her husband appeared to be weak. She also told me that the nurse already cleaned him thoroughly. It wasn't until 9:15 a.m., earlier before the Shangrama mantra recitation, I already wrapped the Shangrama red headband around his neck. I also told Diu Hong to get ready. While I organized my instrument for reciting, Nun Hong Duk exclaimed that Minh Hoi had gasped for air. It was 9:23 a.m. I told her not yet. There would be more to come. He inhaled and he exhaled heavily for 4 more times, and he finally passed away. The clock ticked 9:24 a.m. He passed very peacefully. As soon as he stopped breathing, the foul smell started dispersing through the room. and flies started to enter the room. The smell of feces and urine were different from the smell of death. Besides, Liu Hong already confirmed that the nurse cleaned him not too long ago. I started to chant the Uttrama mantra and use fragrance as aromatherapy because I knew only Urchama Bodhisattva. And Urchama Bodhisattva doesn't mind foul smell, while other devas and guardian protectors would not stand the bad smell. The Uchama Bodhisattva uses his power to cleanse the area for the devas to come. After chanting Uchama mantra, we switched to Shangrama mantra, and I had an unsettled feeling. The human faces divides into 12 areas that reflects health, wealth, marriage, and so on. For example, when people ask me about their properties, I would look at a certain area on their face to see if they have a big house or not. For lifespan, I would look at another area. For some reason, the area that reflects marriage on his face glowed bright red. I was worried that he was still attached to his wife. Immediately, I had to repent for him. Many people ask me that in the past, I only recited and the relatives repented. Minhoi did not have any descendants to repent for him. I glanced around and saw his wife standing outside because she is too afraid that she couldn't control her emotion, which would affect his peace. As you remember, that morning, after reciting Shangrama Sutra, I already asked Liu Hong to give me 8 hours to perform the supportive recitation, and she could do whatever she wanted after that. In my mind, I considered Minhoi as father. Although I couldn't do anything for my biological parents, Master King Chao and Nun Diu Fap, I treated Minhoi as my father of many generations. So I knelt and repented for him. I couldn't let his wife come close to him because she would break down in tears. That was the reason why I knelt it. After finishing reciting the Shangrama mantra and repenting for Mr. Minhoi, I let another group of Buddhist followers recite Amitabha Buddha's name, so the first group could take a short break for lunch. The Buddhist followers recited Buddha's name in 4-word style, but his wife stated that he was still alive. He liked to recite Buddha's name in 6-word style with music. I was not sure if it was him or his wife that liked to recite the words in a 6 style. The 4-word style, A-yi da Phật, doesn't have the word Namo, which means be refuged. Some people wanted to know why we switched the reciting Buddha's name in the middle. I told them because he likes to recite Buddha's name like that. We have to please the dying person, whether we like it or not. Reciting 4-word style consumes less energy for the practitioner. After the break, I came back with 4 Buddhist followers to recite Buddha's name for another hour. We then chanted the first book of the Earth Stored Sutra, which took another hour. The monks recited Buddha's name for another hour, and then we chanted the middle book of Earth Stored Sutra. Another hour of reciting Buddha's name, and we inspected the sign of reborn in Pure Land. After 7 hours of performing supportive recitation, we used 2 different thermometers to take the temperature of his body. Nun Hom Duk recently brought a new infrared thermometer that could be used to measure temperatures for human and air conditioner. If our temperature is low, say at 70 degrees Fahrenheit, it would appear as D, which stands for death. She gave me one of them, but I haven't tried it yet. Another person would have a temperature of 97, while people who have a fever will be 100 and above. His left sole feet measured 71 degrees. His knee was around 80 degrees. His belly was 80 degrees something, and the chest was above 90 degrees, like Nun Nhu Tui. That means he will be reborn in the human realm, which is also a good news. Later on, after we finished, I asked his wife why he wanted to return to the human world, and she admitted that they promised to each other to meet again in the human world in their next life. If they had already vowed to meet again in the human world, why call us to rush me back from Conroe? The temperature at the chest was higher than the forehead. I then performed Fowa. As you know, after 15 minutes, I felt my arms get warm and vibrate like an electrical current. I was amazed that it happened so fast. The audio system started screeching, but then it vanished. The heat kept increasing. Normally, when I perform Fowa, it takes around 30 minutes to increase from 70 to 96 degrees. It's not a simple thing to increase 20 degrees in 30 minutes. Anyone who takes physics would know to heat up 1 degree of 1 kilogram of water, it would take 4,000 watts. For a body of 40 to 50 kilograms, it would take tens of thousands of watts. However, I then felt the temperature start to drop, and I knew his consciousness was disturbed. I immediately used the An talisman to prevent the energy from migrating back to his chest. As we recited, the energy started to return to his head. I moved the talisman to his shoulders. After 10 minutes of reciting, I felt the heat again, and I moved the talisman to his forehead to prevent him from going to the human world and looking for his wife. Did anyone see how I hold the mudra? We use several mantras, including the rebirth Dharinian mantra. The audio system screeched again, but it stopped, and the temperature once again dropped. At this time, I knelt down and prayed. People asked who I bowed to at that time. I told them that I bowed to Minhoi to beg him not to return to the human world again. It took so much energy and effort to help him to be reborn in the Pure Land realm. As soon as I did that, the audio system screeched very loud, and I felt an electric surge went throughout my body. My hair stood up from the energy flow. At that time, Nun Homduk stood on the other side. I glanced at Liu Pham and saw her hair also standing up. In our tradition, no one should stand at the dead man's feet. If the consciousness leaves the body through the feet, then whoever stands close by would be affected. I knelt down and prayed. I tested the temperature again and saw the belly was around 91 degrees, while his feet was still cold. I was sweating because I suddenly remembered that Min Hoi was hungry for food. The last time when I came back to the village to perform the funeral ceremony for Liu Q, I also visited Min Hoi and saw his wife hiding food. She told me that she had to do this because he craved for food, but the doctors did not allow him to eat. Nun Homduk told me after he had his appendix surgery, she still received saline and medication through the IV. The doctor told her not to have solid food until she passes gas. She was desperately waiting, but she was still craving for food. It was only a few days, but she really missed her meals. As soon as she passed some gas, she cried to her mother to bring her some food. The novice monk, Quang Long, also had his appendix removed. He stayed in that hospital for a week for recovery. After 2 to 3 days, every time his relatives came, he hoped that they had brought him some food. The first bite of food was heavenly. That was only a week. Min Hoi didn't eat for 4 months already. Every time he heard the gong of the kitchen, he cried rice out loud. As you know, he couldn't be hungry because the insured milk was pumped for him all the time. We have 2 different types of hunger: physical and a psychological hunger. Back when I was in Vietnam, there was a young lady who had possessed by a hungry ghost. She ate 7 to 8 bowls of rice, which was impossible for a small lady. After I chanted mantras, the ghost left her body and she asked for food. Her mother said that she just ate, but she keeps on insisting that she didn't. Her stomach was full to the rim, but she still wanted to eat. I called Dharma Hui Tan and said it was her psychological behavior, her psychological hunger. Nun Homduk and novice monk Tien Tru also experienced the same kind of hunger. At that moment, all they thought about was food. Liu Hung and Min Hoi married in 1962 and had no descendants. Liu Hung family was very rich and Min Hoi was very poor. He was in the 5th year of medical school, but his family was not wealthy. In the old days, equal social status was very important. His family had put all hope into him, but Liu Hong's family wanted him to quit his medical school. In the end, he quits his medical school so he could marry her. At this moment, I think she's just average. Not that pretty, but he gave up his medical doctor professional career for her. Liu Hong cried a lot because they really loved each other with over 6 years of marriage. After marrying her, he washes the dishes, went to the market, drove the car, and did everything until he had a stroke. That was when she learned to use the washing machine. I've been wondering why this couple had no children. A happily married couple usually has many children. So when I saw the high temperature forming on his stomach, I panicked. I asked the villagers to recite Vistabhina Buddha's name. In the earth-stored scriptures, page 125, earth-stored Bodhisattva told our Buddha all the names of the Buddha that benefits the human. The Amitabha Buddha has 48 vows regarding the Pure Land realm. However, before we leave this world for the Pure Land realm, we must be free from the 3 evil paths, right? Just like a spaceship orbiting in space, it had to escape the gravitational force of the earth. So when I saw his stomach was at 91 degrees because he was thinking about food, if I took my hands off, he would have 80 degrees on his forehead. That means it would be over. I suddenly remember the vows made by the Vistabhina Buddha. It stated that if any man or woman who had heard the title of Vistabhina Buddha, he or she will never fall into an evil path and will be born in heaven with so much blessing. I then recited the name of Vistabhina Buddha, and that was when the audio system screeched loudly. I then recited the true words of 7 Buddha for eradicating offenses, and the supportive recitation was successfully completed. During the recitation, you must trust your reflex and your instincts. Buddha always have divine hearing. All sentient beings only have to think, and the Buddha already knows. In this particular case, the Amitabha Buddha is waiting for Minhoi, but he would not leave and keeps thinking about his wife and food. Could he possibly meet the Buddha Amitabha? Obviously not. I was in crisis when his belly was hot, but he was thinking about his wife and food. That was the reason I chanted Vistabhina Buddha. As some of you already experienced, when you are in danger between death and life, reciting Kuan Yi Bodhisattva is very effective. When you are in danger, your mind has no delusion, and you recite earnestly. You have to pay attention to the sutra for performing supportive recitation. You have to notice the vows of each Buddhas. Some Buddha vow to help you attain arhat. Some vows help you arrest to Bodhi. And some protect you to not fall into evil paths. I recited the Vistabhina Buddha's name less than 5 times, and the screeching started. I then switched to true words of 7 Buddhas for eradicating offenses. The names of the 7 Buddhas are always reciting in the offering for the dead ceremony. You must understand that we recite these 7 Buddhas help us to rid all the sins and bad karmas. I knew clearly that if I failed to stop him from returning to his wife, then the supportive recitation would be a waste of time and effort because he would not follow the Amitabha Buddha. Tuduk told me that when I announced that he was already born in the Pure Land realm, Diu Hom clapped her hands and cried. She asked her deceased husband why he didn't keep his promise to meet her. In short, each case was not the same. As you watch Master Thuy Minh and I bathe Minh Hoi on the surveillance camera, the left side of his buttock was necrosed with foul odor. We poured the alcohol to wipe, and the flesh peeled off like powder. That means he had laid on the left side, so much it had become necrosed. I also talked to some of the Buddhist followers. They said they had research on the lateral rotation bed. Every 30 minutes, the bed will rotate so the patients can lay in different positions to avoid bed sores. The nurse only changed the clothes and bathes for the patient, but they would not rotate them hourly. The weather is still cold, but in summer, it will be very hot. If Minh Hoi was in Vietnam, he would have more bed sores. I could not speak, so we had to endure the pain. The Earth-Stored Sutra mentions some people wanting to die, but they couldn't and have to endure the half-lived, half-dead condition. However, Minh Hoi stayed in the supportive recitation room, not even for 3 days. He passed away peacefully. When Nun Hom Duk called me to get prepared because Minh Hoi would go soon. At 9:10 a.m., he already gasped for air twice. When I arrived, he was still alive. I was preparing my chanting instruments, and within the minute, he left at 9:24 a.m. and very peacefully. Everyone asked me why the dead always opens their mouths. Because when they are about to die, they had to inhale harder, then exhale like a fish on land. We call it fish breathing. In addition, the oxygen tube prevents the mouth from closing. At this time, the mouth slowly closed together around the 3rd to 4th hour. In the end, the mouth could not be fully closed because their upper canine pushes his lips. However, as you can see, Minh Hoi's face was beautiful and turned pink. What I learned from his case was the love of couple and hunger after 4 months of not eating, just drinking ensure. In other cases, when I drink water, they have no appetite. In this case, I had to leave the room. If I drink water, even though his eyes was already closed, the Earth-Stored Sutra said that in the first hour of death, the eyes can no longer see and the ears can no longer hear in the 2nd hour. In the 3rd hour, the nose lost its function. The tongue can no longer taste in the 4th hour. In the 5th hour, the body loses its tactile sensation. And in the 6th hour, consciousness will be gone. So during that time, Minh Hoi would know whatever we did. As a matter of fact, he actually knows everything we talked about right now. Back to the issue. If the heat travels from the head down to the lower extremities, you must recite the name of Vispaning Buddha, because this Buddha vows if anyone hears his name, he or she will never be reborn in the 3 devil's paths. Reciting the name of the true words of 7 Buddhas for eradicating offenses to delay his bad karma. Another reason the heat formed at the belly was because of his hunger for food. Without eating for 4 months, Minh Hoi would think about food more than Amatet Buddha. The love between husband and wife also made the heat form at his belly. These are the things you have to remember when it will be your turn to perform the supportive recitation. There is an electrical current in our body that we don't pay attention to. Whenever I took off my robe to wash, I gave Mr. Tuimin the praying beads, and he gets stuck. It gets like a shock, like putting his hands into the electrical outlet. I also felt the shock, even though I wore 2 to 3 sweaters. My inner shirt still had bad odor. We now will head to the kitchen and have breakfast. This area must be cleared for the funeral home to take him away. I wanted all the formal banners and umbrellas for his ceremony like DQ. I will need his robe and cassock when he attends the short-term monkhood. I will perform the funeral ceremony, and his wife will make the offering for him after we chant Amitabha Buddha's Sutra. His body will stay in here for another night, so I will probably have another Dharma talk tonight. I have promised him to preach the Earth-Stored Sutra. We will recite Shangrama Sutra on Sunday morning. Around 10 to 11 a.m., we will do another offering ceremony before the funeral home comes to pick him up for cremation. The best time for him to leave can't be after 1 p.m. We now should put our hands together to bow the Buddha. I want to say goodbye to all Buddhist followers who are watching this live stream regarding the good and conflicting predestination. He left within 5 days, just like my prediction. If he lives for 5 more weeks, his entire back will be necrosed because of his bedridden condition. The nurse couldn't really bathe him thoroughly. The good predestination was that he passed quickly. The conflicted predestination was his love for his wife, the love of couples, and the hunger for food. Think about it. They had been married for 60 years and had no children, so the bond between them are very strong. In cases like this, you should ask the spouse to step away during the supportive recitation. We are happy because we had Buddhist nun Nubin and Ryukyo reborn in Pure Land realm. Minhoi is the first male in this village that was born in Pure Land realm. There are still a few more men in this village. As you remember, at the beginning of the year, I stated there will be a few villagers passing away. I am begging Buddha to give me a little break because I am very exhausted. We should be happy because Minhoi reborn in Pure Land realm. I now understand why Nun Nyutui didn't want to learn the Fowa technique that was left behind by Master Kinchu because of stress and responsibility. Nun Handuan also did not learn Fowa either because of the enormous pressure. I only fully understand many Dharma brothers and sisters had refused to learn Fowa. The more you know, the greater the responsibility. Regular funeral ceremony took only 45 minutes to chant Amitabha Buddha's Sutra. Now, no one can criticize if that person was reborn in Pure Land realm or not. Only people in my shoes will understand my situation. I succeeded in 13 cases, but failed on the 14th case. Then everything will be down the drain. Nun Nyutui told me she wouldn't do it because she couldn't handle the stress and the hypertension. I only have one chance to help my disciples to be reborn in Pure Land. I vow to transfer the merit of this Dharma talk to all Buddhist followers and sentient beings so they will become